this was an historic moment. What is your reaction?
Well, it was historic. I don't know that a mugshot was really necessary. Usually mugshots are to make sure that if a person absconds, they'll know what the person looks like, and they put out all-point bulletins to be on the lookout for this person. Obviously, we know what Trump looks like, but they decided in Fulton County, and it's their prerogative, that everyone who appears there will be treated the same, and he was treated the same. Why he would pose that way is another whole question. It was a rather Silence of the Lambs-like appearance, and I don't really quite get why you would do that, but he's selling T-shirts to say no surrender, so maybe he thought that was a fitting portrait of a no surrender T-shirts. Maybe
Even
Fani Willis should sell
he had
one.
just surrendered.
Yeah, well, maybe Fani Willis should sell one that says no retreat, so we could have the no retreat, no surrender.
It sounds like there's a lot of merch along with the indictment.
This is getting to be a little absurd. I want to ask you about this case specifically beyond the mugshot, because not actually very much changed yesterday. Michael, I spoke earlier with Dave Ehrenberg, the state attorney for Palm Beach County. He joined me on Bloomberg Radio on Sound On and talked about whether people will start flipping in this case. Here's what he said.
The reason why Fani Willis, my counterpart there in Fulton County, indicted 19 people was she was hoping that some of them are going to flip early on. I don't think it's possible to have a trial of all 19 at the same time unless you do it in the Atlanta Hawks arena. And so I think that she will get a bunch to flip. There's an adage, first in, first to win. The first one through the prosecutor's door gets the best deal. And then she'll use them as key witnesses against the others.
So, Michael, as I asked Dave Ehrenberg, when does flipping season begin? How soon are we going to be talking about this?
Well, a couple of things. First is, I think you may get guilty pleas in this case and not necessarily cooperation, because many of these people might not have much to cooperate with respect to. But I expect that some of the Tier 2 people will seek to get out from under the RICO mandatory sentencing obligations. And some of them, if they have something to cooperate with, will try to do so. And yes, he's right to say that early in gets you a better deal. But at this low level, the deal is going to be the deal. They're going to plead guilty to a substantive count, a felony count. And if they have some cooperation, maybe they'll get a period of probation. Maybe they won't if they don't have anything to say. But I don't think she indicted people solely for the purpose of pressuring them to flip. I think she indicted them because these were spokes in the wheel of a hub and wheel conspiracy. And you have the people in the top row that you're showing there. They were more of the hub, and the bottom row were more of the spokes. And so you'll knock off those spokes as quickly as you can and stick to the hub.
What do you make of the fact that in Georgia there's a mandatory minimum? I mean, everyone says they can never see the idea of a former president being behind bars. Is that a real threat to him right now? Well, being convicted of a felony is a threat to anybody. Whether he goes to jail, I think, is problematic. If he has Secret Service protection for life, I don't know how you do that in a federal prison. It may be that he's, in home detention or something, but absolutely, I think the stigma of being a convicted felon, whether you're incarcerated or not, is plenty powerful stuff. And I think in this case, really, we lose focus on what we should be all about. This shouldn't be about prison or not prison. This should be about accountability or no accountability. And I think that if he's held accountable, that is found guilty of any of the charges in any of the 91 counts that he's faced, then I think that's vindication of the system. And worrying about whether he goes to jail or not is sort of a beside the point question for me.
Well, give us your global view on all this right now, Michael. I know that we still have technically an arraignment to take place here, but now that we've seen action in all 4 indictments, Donald Trump's legal team has some serious work ahead in the next year. What's the strategy? Are there separate teams for each indictment? How are they going to do this?
Well, that's a great question. He's just hired a new lawyer, a very capable lawyer in Fulton County. And I know that they have stuff coming up there on Monday, which is the question of whether this case gets removed from state court to federal court. Yep. We know on Monday, Judge Chutkin will decide when the trial date is. And so it goes. Starting Monday, we are off to the races in all of these cases, and they're going to be running concurrently. And Trump has to have legal teams focused on each of these four things. There's some overlap between Fulton County and the January 6th federal indictment, but by and large, I think you need segregated teams. Of course, they'll be integrated in the sharing of information, but you got to have segregated teams focusing on the merits of each of these cases in order to prepare for them. They're all complicated cases.
Yeah, they are complicated because some of them also deal with national security documents that are classified. Michael, how does all of this play into the election? What actually gets done before November of next year?
That's a great question that nobody knows the answer to, although we'll find out on Monday about the January 6th federal case. I think Judge Chutkan really wants this case to go to trial before the election. I think she has the best chance of getting that case between the federal cases moving forward. Eileen Cannon seems to be foot dragging a little bit more. Chutkan says politics won't play a role in my courtroom. I don't think it's that complicated a case that it can't go forward in a January, February, March time period. I don't know about the case in Fulton County, whether that gets to trial before the election. It all depends on whether things get removed and whether or not people plead guilty. That case has to be pared down to 5 or 6 people. And, one of the defendants has asked for a speedy trial, which means he has to be tried before November 1st. They have a October 23rd trial date. We'll see how that sticks as other defendants start complaining about it impinging upon their right to effective assistance of counsel. It's all so complicated, this timeline.
Boy, it sure is. Just so our viewers are prepared for what happens on Monday, Michael, will Judge Chutkan's word on a trial date be the final word, or are we going to see more maneuvering to delay after that?
Well, the Trump people will always try to maneuver to delay it. But if she says we are going to trial on March 1st, let's say, then they're going to go to trial on March 1st, barring something unforeseen, because judges control their calendars. And unless there's some way to take some intermediary appeal that stays the trial from going forward, which is sort of rare in these types of cases, that case is going to go forward.